Hello，你好，欢迎回来，Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger. Date is April 9, 2025. Every year, the weather seems to be getting weirder and weirder. I mean, the last few years, we've seen a lot of environmental changes, flood and storms and drought and fire. You name it, we got it. And it just seems to get worse and worse every year. And there's a central message that just say we messed up the environment really, really bad, and we need to start thinking environmentally. We need to start recycling and figure out a way to make the environment better. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to enjoy this earth for much longer. Would you be surprised if I tell you that this idea of being environmental is not new? I mean, some of us want to act like we never heard this before. Oh, what? Really? We're messing up the environment? No way. Let me tell you this. Chinese people throughout the ages have been extremely environmentally conscious. And this can be seen in laws and rules and even invention from the old days. Now, I know some of you are going to say, yeah, well, hold on a sec. You're talking about Chinese people. You're talking about people who spit on the ground. And you're talking about people who litter and hunt animals to extinction and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that Chinese people were very good at it. That especially in the closer to modern era, when China has undergone civil wars and war against the British and war against Japan and war against uh, other people, uh, in a war-torn China, in China's modern uh, war-torn history, there has been a lot of bad decisions, uh, only decisions that could be made at the time. And some of these decisions, unfortunately, ended up resulting in people being less educated, less environmentally conscious. Because let's be fair, when you are busy rebuilding a country from war, when you are busy trying to put food on the table, not too many people think about environmental issues, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say that Chinese people are very good with the environment, but I will tell you that most of what we know of the atrocities committed by Chinese people to the environment today have been a direct result of the war and modernization and all that stuff in the modern era. In the old days, China or Chinese people were a lot better at keeping track of the environment we lived in. I can take you back to as far as 5,000 years in Chinese history when China was led by uh, well, we can't really call him an emperor, but we can definitely call him a chieftain. Because back then, China wasn't exactly an empire at the time. But this great chieftain by the name of Sun, um, if you study Chinese history, then I'm just going to give you guys a really brief, quick run through. Uh, Starting from the very beginning, Chinese people were uh, united by uh, Huangdi, right? That's why we're called Yan Huang Zishun, like the son and the grandchildren and children of Huangdi and Yan Di. Okay, so Yan Di and Huangdi were the first, and then it went down to Yao. Uh, Yao was one of the first chieftain leaders, and then after Yao it was Sun, and then after Sun was Yu. Yu Da Yu was the one who saved China from the Great Flood and basically worked out the water system and how to excavate the rivers and lakes to make things flow better so people wouldn't be flooded all the time. So we are talking about 4 to 5 thousand years ago, right? You don't need to memorize all that. It's not a history exam, but I just want to put it in context. Sun, one of the very first Chinese leader, have made a special department, a person he appointed to take care of the environment. And this person, his name is still being used in today's policy making when people are talking about the laws or policies having anything to do with environment. This department's name was Yu. Yu basically translate to fish. Okay, so if you think of it like the world's first fish and game warden, you are very close. And that's basically who this person was. Was the Yu the department head of the Yu department. Okay, so the head of the Yu or fish department, his job was not only to take care of fish and game. His job went from guaranteeing everyone in the kingdom had clean water, access to clean water, to tracking down and punishing all those who were endangering animals and fish and birds and forest and water. So he was basically the head of the uh, environmental department. He was the one that had to take care of the environment. And this was then expanded upon when the next great chieftain, Da Yu, took over. And Da Yu, like I mentioned, Da Yu is the one that saved Chinese people from the Great Flood. Um, and Da Yu have further uh, written into law that said uh, the last 3 months of the lunar calendar you are not allowed to put the nets in the water to catch fish. It's okay if you use a fishing pole or if you catch them by hand, but no net is allowed in the water for the last 3 months of the lunar calendar, and no logging or cutting of tree is allowed in the first 3 months of the lunar calendar. Now, why did he put those specific dates down? Well, because even way back 4,000 years ago, Da Yu knew that the last 3 months of the lunar calendar, which means it's like autumn and winter season, is when a lot of fish swim back upriver to lay their eggs and to go through their mating rituals. And crab was the same thing. That's when a lot of crabs were mating was during the autumn season. So if you put nets in the water, you're going to catch a lot of fish, and you're going to catch a lot of fish that it's carrying babies. So if you start killing off these uh, uh, fish that are pregnant, that are with eggs, then there won't be any fish 2 years from now. So uh, he made it a law that you're not allowed to have nets in the water for those last 3 months because you need to give these fish a chance to lay their eggs and grow more fish. As to the first 3 months of the lunar calendar, you're not allowed to harvest or cut any tree. It's because during springtime, it's generally when a lot of seedlings and trees come out of the ground, the plants are growing. That's the strongest time of their growth cycle is during the springtime. And if you are in the forest, trampling all over the place, stomping on the newly grown grass and hurting the saplings and stuff like that, then trees and plants won't grow very good. And by the time you need them, they won't be there. So Even 4,000 years ago, our Dayu chieftain or Dayu King Dayu, if you want, if you feel better about that, knew enough about how and when it's a good time to harvest, good time to fish, a good time to uh, uh, do some logging and tree cutting. And throughout the ages, Dayu's law of no net in the water for the last 3 months of the lunar calendar and no cutting of trees for the first 3 months of the lunar calendar have been passed down from emperor to emperor for uh, generations, for thousands of years. No emperor have ever dared to change the law on that. In fact, during the time of spring and autumn chaos, 春秋战国 time, about uh, 2,500, 2,600 years ago, there was a king from the kingdom of Lu, Lu Guo, the kingdom of Lu. The king of Lu, uh, during one of his outings in the autumn time, in the late October, early November, he saw that there were so many fish. There's so many fish in the river, and the king was kind of young and exuberant, so he decided, "Wow, there's so many fish. It should be okay if I catch some." So he uh, put a net into the river to catch some fish for himself. Now, most of us would think, well, he's the king, so if he just want to catch fish, I'm not going to stop him. Would you stop him? I mean, risk having your head cut off? Well, thankfully, one of his ministers, one of his royal advisors, was a very straightforward person. This guy's name was Ge, uh, really awkward name, Ge. So the royal advisor Ge saw the king putting the net in the river, and he pulled out his sword and rushed forward and cut the net to pieces in front of the king. Uh, the king was like, "What the hell are you? What's wrong with you, man?" Like, I I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just I just want to catch some fish. There's a lot of fish in the river. What's wrong with you? And Ge turned around and looked at the king, and he said, "Your Majesty, do you remember the ancestors' teaching?" And the king said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. It's the last 3 months of the lunar calendar, but come on. Like I am not going to destroy the environment just because I want to catch a few fish." And Ge said, "Your Majesty, do you also remember that the ancestor said a king who cannot protect his environment cannot be king?" And the king was speechless because Ge was right. And the king bowed his head and he said, "You're right. You're right. I'm sorry. Okay, fine. I'm sorry. Yeah. Uh, I was too impulsive. I saw a lot of fish in the river, and I always, you know me, I love fishing. So yeah, sorry, I got carried away." And then the king of Lu ordered his follower to pack up the torn and shredded fishing net that Ge have cut with his sword. And he said, "I want you guys to take this fishing net back to the palace. I want you to frame it on the wall. So every day when I am doing my kingly duties, I will be able to see it. And this will always remind me to not be impulsive and always take care of the environment." Because the ancestors are right. A king that doesn't care about the environment should not be king. Now we fast forward a little bit to 2,200 years ago during the Han Dynasty. The Han Wendi Emperor, the scholarly emperor, that's what they translate to Wendi, or Han Wendi Emperor. Uh, he one day realized that, wow, guys, we are doing really good. We have conquered a lot of land. Our country is huge, but a lot of the land are basically uh, trash. A lot of these land they are uh, they're ruins because we've been fighting so many wars, and the land are burned out and blood soaked and littered with bones and stuff like that. Well, let's all start growing something, right? Let's start planting. And then his advisors like, well, Your Majesty, what should we plant? Well, Han Wendi realized that, okay, I would really like us to plant crop, but there's a problem because we still need soldiers because we're still fighting against the barbaric invaders from the north. So if we have soldiers, then no one's taking care of the crop because, well, farmers need to be there taking care of the crop all year round, which means they can't be soldiers. So if we want soldiers, we can't have farmers. So Han Wendi decreed for the entire kingdom, the entire Han Chinese kingdom, to grow tree. So he started a big tree growing policy that lasted for many generations. And this actually directly contributes to a lot of the trees that we still have today in China. It's all from the Han Dynasty and the work of Han Wendi and his people. Back in Han Wendi's time, if you like every tree you plant, every time you take part in tree planting activities, you will be registered. You're cataloged. You're entered into a log for Johnny Tiger, 34 years old, has planted 5 trees, something like that, right? And the law was so severe that if you didn't plant a certain number of tree in your lifetime, after you were dead, you were not allowed to use a coffin. You're not allowed to be buried in a coffin, because the idea is if you did not plant tree, then you don't deserve to use wood. Right? If you didn't add to the country's resources, then you're not allowed to use the country's resources. So why did Han Wendi want to plant tree? Well, it's because tree could be turned into boat. Tree could be used to build fire in the wintertime. A tree could be used to build houses and fortification. And tree was also very vital in making uh, parts for weapons like shields and armor and the shaft for spears and so on, and arrows. Don't forget arrows, right? So planting tree was extremely important for the military advancement during the Han Dynasty. Um, as a direct result of the tree planting movement started by Han Wendi, some uh, ministers and magistrates also started to selectively plant a certain type of tree. Some of them would plant apple tree, a fruit tree to add to the food storage, and some of them would plant the specific kind of trees that silkworm need to live on because if you have those trees, then you can have more silkworms, and if you can have silkworms, then you can have silk for trade and to make clothes with. So the big tree planting uh, mobilization started by Han Wendi was a really successful environmental policy at the time. We'll backtrack a little bit and look at what happened when people broke these laws, these environmental laws. Because, yeah, it's one thing to have the policies. I mean, today we have laws and policies, but most of the time people don't care. If you want to throw a pop can on the street, you throw a pop can on the street, and the worst that's going to happen is you get fined, like maybe $100. I mean, that's really bad, but how often does that really happen, right? Well, I would bet you that if you were in ancient China, you would think twice before throwing that pop can on the street, or throwing your water flask or banana peel on the street. Because throughout Chinese history, the punishment for littering uh, and damaging the environment has always been extremely severe. For example, just for littering the street, the lightest punishment is to have your hands cut off. And the more severe cases, if they can prove that you did it intentionally and repeatedly, then you can have your head chopped off or your entire family killed. Now, this may sound like very inhumane to some people, but and someone did bring this up before, right? Uh, Zulu, one of Confucius's students, one of Confucius's favorite students, one day went to ask Confucius, and he said, "Teacher, you are such a humane and merciful person. What do you think of these cruel, cruel laws that chop off people's hands and chop off people's head when people do something so small like throwing a banana peel on the floor?" To Zulu's great surprise, Confucius said, "I believe that's the right thing to do. I believe those people deserve it." Zulu said, "Teacher, how can you say that? Everyone say that you are merciful and you are humane. How can you say that chopping off people's hand or killing them is just for throwing a banana peel on the floor?" Confucius said, "Number one, Zulu, you need to understand that if we live in a dirty, polluted environment, then people are unhappy. And when people are unhappy, it leads to arguments and killing and fighting and raping and all kind of bad stuff. So you throwing a banana peel on the ground, you may think it's no big deal. But if 1,000 people throw banana peel on the ground, then we live in a bad environment, and that will lead to a bad society. So it requires severe punishment to stop it before it gets that bad. Number two, let me ask you this. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how horrible it is to have your hands cut off? And Zulu said, "Well, that will definitely be a 10. I need my hands." And Confucius said, "Okay, well, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult is it to just put that banana peel in your pocket and dispose of it properly?" Uh, 10 being really difficult, and 1 being not difficult at all. Zulu said, "Well, 1, it's, it's easy to just put it in my pocket." So Confucius said, "Well, there's your answer. You are asked to do something very, very easy, and if you don't do it, then the punishment is very, very severe. Logic dictates that you should do the very easy thing to avoid the very severe punishment. There's nothing wrong with that." So you see, even the one of the most merciful and humane scholars in Chinese history, such as Confucius, who's always talking about mercy, who's always talking about kindness, believe that those who pollute the world, those who pollute the environment, deserve what's coming to them. Going back to the Han Dynasty, again, 2,200 years in the past, um, there were gadgets that had been excavated by archaeologists that came from the Han Dynasty that already showed that Chinese people had made innovations in the Han Dynasty to cut down on polluting the air. For example, there's one kind of lamp called the 大雁灯, the great bird lamp, that was designed in a way that the smoke from your lamp will not pollute the air. Some of you that live in the Quebec area in Canada remember that last year Quebec was hit with such a bad air pollution problem because there were a lot of people using their chimney, using their fireplace to stay warm. Now, while staying warm is good, we all need to stay warm. But when you when the smoke from 1,000 chimneys go into the air, and then that cold, damp air makes the smoke and pollutant stay near the ground, that creates a definite health hazard that will linger for days and days and days. Okay, so in the old days when people would burn torches and lamps, it had the same problem. The whatever that's burned, the pollutant, the irritant, the ashes will go up in the air, and then it will hang around because of wet and damp weather, and then it turned to smog. People in the Han Dynasty found a solution for that. So these big bird lamp 大雁灯, uh, they were designed that the chimney, the 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 mouth of there's a pipe built inside the lamp, so the smoke from the lamp, the oil burning, will not go out. Instead, the chimney inside the lamp curves back around into the stomach of the bird, and you fill the stomach of the bird with water. So all those bad pollutants and irritants go into the water inside the stomach of the bird. And then after you're done, after a while, you can see that water turning dark and sooty black. And then you can go dispose of the water by burying it underground or stuff like that. Yeah, it's not a perfect solution because you still have to throw the wastewater somewhere, but at least you're not releasing all that crap into the air. I'll give you guys one more example of environmentalism throughout Chinese history. Going back to about uh, uh, 800, 800 years ago during the Ming Dynasty, during the Ming Dynasty, there's an emperor called Wan Li Emperor. Wan Li Emperor was not a good emperor. A lot of people remember Wan Li Emperor as a lazy bugger, a lazy bum, like almost never do his emperor's duty. He's like spending most of his time with his women in the palace and never took care of politics. Even then, even though Wan Li Emperor was a lazy, no good for nothing emperor, he did do one thing that was actually very, very uh, good for his kingdom. During the time of Wan Li Emperor, uh, a lot of Chinese people were getting pretty rich. There was a lot of merchant. There's a lot of capitalism, capital gains. So there was a big trend for people to buy expensive furniture made from ancient wood. So this unfortunately resulted in uh, illegal logging going on all over China, and especially in the Wutai mountain area near Beijing. Now, Wutai mountain area has traditionally been where a lot of religious gatherings are held. It's a peaceful sanctuary for Buddhist monks, and it has a lot of ancient thousand-year-old trees. But because of this trend for uh, furniture made out of old trees, there were massive logging parties and conglomerations of people that flood into the Wutai Mountain, and these people were not afraid of the law. Some of these people were hired by very rich, very wealthy companies armed with primitive guns. They already had firearm in the Ming Dynasty, by the way, like flintlock and blunderbuss kind of guns. Those one-shot pistols and stuff like that. So these loggers, they were in the Wutai Mountain, and they numbered in the thousands, and they were armed with knives and swords and axes and guns, and any monk that dared to stand up against them would get seriously abused and beat up or outright killed. And within a few years, they did so much damage to the trees around Wutai Mountain that Wutai Mountain almost looked like a balding head. Like it looked like all the forests were gone. Now, finally, the word of this happening got back to the imperial city, and our lazy, very lazy Wanli emperor heard about it. Now, to everybody's surprise, this emperor who has basically not cared about anything, when he heard of what's going on at Wutai Mountain and what's going on with these illegal logging, he was mad, and he ordered for the army general to come see him, and he commanded the army general to go into Wutai Mountain with the entire imperial army, and anyone who was any part of illegal logging operation would be either arrested, killed on the spot, uh, or seriously punished. So, armed with the imperial decree, the imperial army marched into the Wutai Mountain, and within a few days cleared the entire mountain of illegal logging parties. Thousands and thousands of these illegal lumberjacks were killed and beaten and jailed, and even people who hired them, these rich people who hired them, were arrested and had their heads chopped off. So it was Wan Li Emperor's quick and decisive reaction that was able to save and preserve Wutai Mountain. So today, when we go to China, the Wutai Mountain is still there, still have a lot of ancient, beautiful trees, and is still a sanctuary for religious gatherings in China. So you see, throughout history, 5,000 years or more, Chinese people have been very environmentally conscious. There has been strict laws in damaging, punishing anyone who damaged the environment, strict laws in protecting the environment. If only we can learn from that today and tighten up our laws, then maybe we can still save the world. Thank you for checking out today's episode. I'll be back tomorrow for some more Toy Thursday goodies. For now, 谢谢 and 再见。